It is July the 28th, 2024. I'm going to be your host tonight. I am Dana, and you can call me at 709 here in Canada, 589-4406. And we got lots of news to get through. It's good to see everybody again. See, we're killing it. I bet you Kyle Hill is jealous. I got 6 people on my show. Actual people, not scumbags. Or useful idiots, or people who just don't know any better, and the majority of them are people that don't know any better. It's superficial Kyle Hill, but not the majority of them. I say half of them are the pro-nuclear community linking blogs to his live shows, right? He's superficial, like his charm, everything about him. It's really evident. It's crystal clear. And his name is Kyle. Its name, I should call it, is Kyle Hill. He's a perpetual liar. He's a mass murderer, monster, and a pro-nuclear degenerate. And he does that at any cost, particularly to the species, the 8 million visible species, highly visible species, and humans. This Kyle Hill has a hate on for everybody and everything. It's really unique. And let's just bring up some stuff about Kyle. Hi, everybody. But he's overdue. Kyle Hill. He's a character is what he actually is. And we've covered him over the years a little bit, but we haven't given his dues yet. And tonight is not really going to be giving him his dues. But I would estimate it's going to take 4 2-hour videos to flush him out properly. He's a science communicator, makes videos about nuclear weapons. What an interesting thing to say. I'm a science communicator and makes videos about nuclear weapons and disasters, pop culture, like bananas, potato chips, and walking in the sunshine. I can be Kyle Hill. He streams games. Oh. And he hosts a podcast called Office Hours. Training, because he was a professor. He wanted to train the kids to be good little office monsters for the military-industrial complexes. This one of his videos, the government let me kiss nuclear waste. So the average person, that's as far as they're going to get, right? And that's what they know, right? And so they get lots of numbers. They show up in everybody's search engines. It doesn't matter if they watch it. There's this, and it's not really subtle. It's social engineering. And he covered nuclear a lot, and Fukushima. And I never caught him telling the truth a single time. Not once. And it's clear he didn't write any of this. You have to be actually fairly smart to write. He's got a great education. He's a professor, for goodness sakes, Dana. What are you? I'm an ex-commercial diver. And I've been playing around with nuclear for a couple of decades. Pretty heavy compared to most people. I'm probably the most prolific producer on nuclear material for the public worldwide. And I'm also a researcher. I spend many months at a time on the ocean researching radioactive fallout after Fukushima. And I don't see any of the lies he's telling you can help you. I can see they can kill you because they make you complacent and you don't pay attention to the incredible dangers and harms from Fukushima. Has he ever showed you these pictures? Is he going to show you this? His latest videos, he's like, not an ounce got out of the reactors. Nothing. You can eat the... This is only 2 of the reactors, by the way. There's 4 of them melted down. With 8 fuel pools And each fuel pool got more reactor cores than all 4 reactors combined. And at the top of the building, there's multiple fuel pools. This was a Medusa, what we call a Medusa, a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. Kyle's Hill's version of that is like this guy here, actually. This is Kyle's Hill version. See if this rings a bell for you, because he's making a lot of videos about the water. This is another professor at the Department of Nuclear Quantum Engineering, Dan, in South Korea. Why should we listen to you? Because I got a pretty compelling story. How many of you believe that these 4 medias, major medias, is ABC, Cecilia, Vega behind me, and that they're all saying they're at the top of that building 120 feet above it. That's the Kyle, they're just another Kyle Hill, right? They make about $1 million a year. Look them up. Being scumbags. Every engineer, every nuclear academic on the planet, when they looked at these 2 original detonations, Reactor 3 and Reactor 4, they knew the reactors were gone, the fuel pools were gone. So yeah, there's a lot of Kyle Hills out there. So what makes this one any different? Because he's exceptionally evil. And if you go look at some of his videos, you start realizing right away there's something really creepy going on with the great Kyle Hill. Kyle Hill. And this is a really interesting connotation. Award-winning science educator. I got awards for not being a scumbag like Kyle Hill. White House Science Communication Advisor. The military-industrial complex. A little puppet, a little monkey. A nuclear communications consultant. Think about that statement. Kyle Hill. A perpetual lawyer. This is his... And who's going to challenge that narrative? Who can really do it? Who's going to... Well, not really. Anybody can challenge in academic industries. They won't, because this is what they all do. They make sure nobody has a future. And he walks away looking pretty. Big, lots of money. He's a sexy vampire and a legend. A sexy vampire. He is a vampire. There's no doubt about it. He's a real vampire. What do you think? He's preying on you. That's why that connotation is there in the first place. He's a legend in his own mind and everybody else's mind because he's superficial. He's a sociopath, a psychopath. He really is. And when you watch his videos, if you know anything about nuclear and you watch his nuclear video, Kyle Hill, you got to be exceptionally evil to tell the kind of lies he told. Now, he doesn't know. He's not smart enough to know all of these stuff. So somebody else wrote it, probably from the International Atomic Energy Agency or the Nuclear Energy Institute. Both of them are heavy players in the propaganda machines, right? That's their job, basically. The story comes from those 2, the official stories. So Kyle's official story is nothing got out of the building. The buildings are perfectly intact. Is Fukushima radioactive water safe? That's a really interesting one, too. Is Fukushima water safe? Are these people really at reactor 4? Let me play this short video, and you tell me if you're actually on top of the building to your left. Because this is Kyle's version.
Where I was standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
Oh, we're at Reactor 4. Must be nice being at Reactor 4. Oh, that's right, it doesn't even exist. There it is, to your left. Kyle Hill. So, Kyle's Hill version of the water is really interesting. Photos of new images of Fukushima 2013. Images released by the press, and the Alps decontamination system is under construction. That's 2013 in August, was it? July or something, actually. February. Come on, Dana, can't you get your story, the dates right? I know. It's tough being me. So then read this story. Fukushima contaminated water problems worsen. August 9, 2014. I'm not Kyle Hill. I don't have 5 people working the equipment, and I don't have a big production, marketing, anything behind me. I'm not part of the White House. I'm not being pumped out by 29,000 public relation officers from the Pentagon, because that's what's happening to him, right? If he's affiliated with the White House, he has access to a lot more than that. So this is August 9, 2014, over a year after. And they're saying then that the Alps system, they might have it up and running by the beginning of 2015, basically. I mean, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags, but nothing got out. They don't have a water filtration system after 4 years, where you have multiple nuclear reactors melted down. You got nowhere to store the water. And they admit, and we play the video quite often, the tanks were all full in 2013, all of them. And that the media is pretending they're on top of a building that doesn't even exist officially. You can go and look up the videos. I just played a clip of it for you. You got professors saying that it's equal to 2.2 grams of tritium. So these melted down and blown up and destroyed and missing reactors and reactor cores that were stored in the fuel pools at the top of the buildings. Never had any emissions whatsoever. The plume model shows the plumes covering the entire planet in just 26 days in that model. When you look at these buildings, picture Kyle Hill, 190 feet up in the air, saying he's on top of the fuel pools. What they done was they stripped down the buildings to the stumps with the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants that don't speak the language. Most vulnerable of society, don't know what they're doing. And they put these contraptions, they built it off-site and then put these contraptions on top of these two. But underneath that contraptions, this is what it actually looks like to your left. You can't fix that by putting a contraption on it to cover and have the media come up telling you it doesn't exist. Kyle Hill's after telling you it never hurt the water. What about the Great Lakes, Kyle? Why are they surrounded by nuclear dumps and nuclear power plants? They all hemorrhage radiation from the fuel pools 24 hours a day. And another question that Kyle Hill, did you go out on the ocean and do research expeditions for 6 years like me, Kyle? I went out for 6 years and it was hellish. Nobody supported me, no universities, no academics, no medias. And the species to your left are actually missing, Kyle. I know you're laughing about it right now, or when you watch it. But all those species are missing, so you can make a few dollars. So Kyle Hill can be a legend, a sexy vampire. The problem is we've got too many of these sexy vampires and legends on our planet that are cutting your throats and everybody else's and the species while they're at it. Because they hate puppies as much as they hate everything else. They're targeting the most vulnerable. When you talk about video games on your sites like this and you're supposed to be some kind of authentic legend, a sexy vampire, you got the integrity of a fruit fly, right? It's really, these are terrorists, just super villains. They're disgusting and repulsive and repellent, but It's dreadful, right? It's frightening that people like this, these bad eggs, these con artists, right? That's what he actually is. He's a grifter. Species to your left are actually exterminated post-Fukushima. And I know because I went out and done the research expeditions. And I'm very, very, very offended by scumbags like Kyle Hill, who didn't go out and do the research, who didn't go out and spend 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean without coming ashore in desperations to find the documentation. So people like Kyle Hill couldn't tell you the lies he's telling you. It's because there's no excuse to not know who I am if you're in the nuclear industry. There's no excuse. There's zero possibility Kyle Hill never heard of me. It's zero. I'm not bragging. I'm stating the fact that I've made myself publicly available. The phone number is at the beginning of every video. And that the species to your left now are exterminated because of Fukushima radioactive fallout. Not just the dumping in the ocean, but the actual radioactive fallout that we've been documenting at a desperate pace for over a decade straight on YouTube. And my last channel with 25,000 subscribers, 24,800 for 5 years. Never lost one, never gained one. Or I'd be 10 times the size of Kyle Hill if I had a fair break too. But Kyle Hill is put on a pedestal all around the world because he's a perfect Manchurian candidate. He's so down the rabbit hole now he can't tell the truth. And he's always this fucking close to a mirror screaming insults at himself. Because that's what I'm saying is true. I went out there and got the shit beat out of me year after year after year so that Kyle Hill couldn't tell you any different but the facts. Because that's available at my site, The Nuclear Proctologist, free for everybody. And I had quite a few universities wanted me to publish it, but they wanted to put all my pictures behind a fucking paywall where you'll never see them. So what's more important, Kyle Hill, or the species? That's really the question of Kyle Hill and every other one. There's tens of thousands of these Kyle Hills. He's happened to be exceptional scumbag. What he does, it's fraudulent, right? It's grifting, it's swindling. Does the species to your left matter? Because if they matter, then Kyle Hill doesn't. And if you're young and you don't know the difference, you will in the future. You'll see, geez, that guy warned everybody, tried to tell everybody, tried to help everybody, tried to get informed, have a conversation at least. Does the species to your left fucking matter? Do you care? Would you like to go to a beach and see that? Because people like Kyle Hill, you can't. You never will again. That's exterminated. We've done it for 6 years. The species never returned. I didn't go up there for 6 years because I'm fabulous, a fucking sexy vampire, or a legend, or whatever the case may be. Whatever gets them to sleep at night, I don't know, but I don't sleep at night. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. Isn't that amazing? You couldn't step at low tide, you couldn't go to the high tide line without stepping on this the whole way. So you didn't want to go there when it was low tide because it was this incredible diversity. It was amazing. It's inconceivable. And I used to dive in that 6 hours a day when I was young for many years on both the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. I considered them my friends because I knew nobody would ever, I'd probably be the only person that experienced those places that I went to. And this was normal for me. Now it's all gone post-Fukushima. And then to have people like Kyle Hill out there suggesting that there's no adverse side effects from multiple ongoing nuclear meltdowns so that he can get a big fat paycheck and your children can get cancer and heart problems and liver problems and lung problems and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline. If you don't understand that big picture, go back and watch my last presentation, which was 10 days ago. I hurt myself the next day, so I've been down for 9 days. I'm at least 4, 5, 6 weeks away from being back, hopefully, to normal. But I got no choice but to come out because there's so many of these fucking Kyle Hill out there. And there's no one out there to put them fucking down. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions. This was 192 species of insect-eating birds in 2020. I covered it extensively for several weeks. The world went to sleep right away. They were extremely emaciated. No fat reserves, no muscle mass. And when I went to these beaches, this is where a lot of birds, there was 30,000 insects at the high tide lines. And so they would have migrated right along this coastline, and they would have just feasted at low tide twice a day, right? There was no reason, and there's, like I said, there used to be 30,000 insects at the high tide line here, which is the west coast of British Columbia. I went from Vancouver to British Columbia, or to Alaska, for 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year. And I was under siege the entire friggin' time. If you look at my name, everybody fucking hates me. There's 1,000 public relation firms out there to make sure you will never look at me again. Because I just happen to be able to tell the story of these fucking scumbags and people like Kyle Hill, who's made an incredible living destroying your future and everybody else's future. And I'm very compelled to come out and warn you of these sexy vampires, these legends. And look at the picture that he got there, his picture. And if you go look at the older videos of him, you can tell he's got an education like any other kid, but he never went past that kid stage. And that's why they chose him to be a professor, because he was so disconnected from the human experience. Kyle Hill. And his videos are so cringy. Well, there's nothing I can say about Kyle Hill that he hasn't stood in front of a fucking mirror and yelled at it himself many, many hundreds of times. I can tell you that. Just let me go away with this next. We'll get on to the next story in a minute. Neptunium-239 dispersal post-Fukushima. This is 20 days in neptunium, which decays to plutonium. 238, I believe it is. And every dog in every study died from plutonium with 3 different tumors. They died mostly of skeleton tumors, bone tumors, but also liver tumors and lung tumors. But the majority of them actually died of skeleton tumors, and the young ones, of course, are mutating to stem cells. What do you think happened to kids? This was a study from the French government. Radiation levels on the West Coast spiked to over 1 million times normal. It was 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137. Cesium-137 pulses energy every second for 300 years, plus 600 feet in every direction. So if you got a single atom out in your garden, and say there's 5 houses in your neighborhood, every one of them houses, it'll pulse right through their house. And slowly but surely, it then degrades the DNA and the chromosomes and the cells in your bodies and your children and your pets and your loved ones, and you're vulnerable and you're fat. But imagine snowstorms of 1 million to 10 million atoms. These are numbers we've never conceived pre-Fukushima. This is just one of the endless studies. These are studies. And by the way, cesium-137 immediately damages the heart muscles of adults and children. As little as 11 atoms will cause, 50 atoms will cause permanent damage to an adult. 11 will cause significant damage to a child, for their hearts in particular, but their whole body. You're being pulsed with this invisible, anthropogenic, man-made ray that's pulsing almost at the speed of light, just shy of the speed of light. And, Kyle Hill, man, he's an amazing speaker. His vocabulary is incredible. Unbelievably educated. He's superficially charming and everything else. His whole persona is superficial. How many times does he have to brush his hair every day? Is a question everybody should ask themselves, including Kyle Hill. But you really want to know about the water, there is no water filtration. You can't filter water from a nuclear meltdown. Like, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. If you put a one-ton bag in the back of a one-ton pickup truck and put them bumper to bumper, 30 million of them, that's 5 rows of traffic around the planet continuously. That's just out of one little area. That's only 3% of the land. Reviewing nuclear accidents, separating fact from fictions. Now, they invoke Kyle Hill in this particular story, and this is why the focus is on Mr. Monster, Kyle Hill. Because how can he not be a monster and do what he's doing? How does that work? Where are we to here? Superficial Kyle Hill, a perpetual liar, a mass murdering monster, a pro-nuclear degenerate, and does this at any cost, which means to harm to everybody and everything forever. Because radiation never goes away, and it attacks everything with the replicating cells with equal vigor. Yippee-ki-yay, okay. And this is a new switch on it. Posch. Posch. My goodness. Maya. That's a friggin' witch right there. And not like a witch in fairy tales, but a witch that boils people in a big pot. And got a weird laugh. Got a witch and a vampire. I'm sorry, sexy vampire. Who'll do anything for their paychecks. There's no one's throat they won't cut for a paycheck. That's how they make a living, cutting people's throats. It's frightening that people like that, exist. But what's more frightening is we do a show, typical 2-hour show, on a news cycle that are the next Kyle Hill, the next Maya Posch. Few accidents speak as much to the imagination as though involving nuclear fission. Go backwards for a second. We're not protesting, okay? We're educating. There is a difference. There is a difference. And Kyle needs 5 people to do stuff like that right there. Kyle Hill. Won't be long before you see him over there literally hugging an A-10 Warthog that only shoots depleted uranium munitions in the poor people countries. I'm on YouTube. I apologize. It's not easy being me. Don't forget to give us some love, some attention, subscriptions, click some buttons so they can track, trace, and database everything you do for the rest of your life. Hey, what is Kyle Hill? Look, he's a vampire. Easy, Kyle. Go easy, boy. Easy. Oh, there's Kyle. There's Kyle. He gets home every night. He's chasing after his puppy. And Kyle likes nuclear. I like nuclear explosions too. Kyle's not the only fucker that likes explosions, I like that stuff though. Coils everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's a coil, right? He's got everybody working for him. He don't do nothing. He just sits there and reads the script a few times, and he shoots the video and waves his hair and says, have a nice fucking day. There's Kyle right there. Look at that. That's Kyle. Sexy Spider-Man or vampire or whatever blows your fucking crank up that day. All of these people, including Kyle Hill, are created by the nuclear industry to manipulate you and your loved ones and your friends and your families in abrogating your responsibilities to this planet and to the insects and birds and the things that make you possible. Imagine being on a planet with no species because you're getting there, thanks to Fukushima. All of these entities, you can't compete. You can't compete without a cape, right? You gotta have a cape. I wonder, surprised I don't see Kyle Hill running around with a fucking cape on. And then there's Guitar Hero and GoPro Hero. And how does a parent or grandparent or aunt or uncle compete with them? We used to deal with people like Kyle Hill a long time ago. These traitors, these fraudsters. These are terrorists. What Kyle Hill is doing is terrorism, right? It's not malfeasance. It's terrorism. In the old days, we used to get rid of our fucking problems. The evil and the wicked and the atrocious and the monsters, degenerates like Kyle Hill. In the old days, we got rid of them. Now we just go watch some superhero, fictional. Somebody will save us. Somebody else will save us. And they got lots of heroes for you to wish that'll save them. Save the insects and birds. But all of these were created by the nuclear industry to lull you into complacency. And then you'll find people like Kyle Hill, and Kyle Hill will just cut your fucking throat every time you go there, and you'll give him a thumbs up for it. Pat on the fuck. You might even donate to him. Yeah, give him a pat on the fucking back. Well, he makes endless money on every show just for donations. See people donating $500 on fucking YouTube. That's them doing it to themselves to try to get you to do it, right? And then he's going to take all of that and he's going to have an amazing lifestyle. I work like a fucking dog, next to nothing. Few types of accidents speak as much to the imagination as those involving nuclear fission. From the unimaginable horror of the nuclear bomb in Nagasaki, Hiroshima, to the fever-pitch reporting about the accidents at 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima. The 3 Mile Island! The fever-pitched reporting. These are not accidents, they're nuclear meltdowns. Give them some fucking prominence, you cunt. All of these have resulted in many descriptions of visualizations which are merely imaginative flights of fancy. Just nothing happened. It's like a banana. It's like a potato chip. Go watch Kyle Hill. Because that's what she does, right? She didn't write the fucking story either. You gotta be a human at some point in your lives. And if they're smart enough to do what they're doing, they're smart enough to go get a real job and not fucking make twice as much, not being a piece of shit. Being evil is easy, man. It's so easy. It's so easy. They got songs to make it seem nice. I got a question for Kyle Hill. Big shot, Kyle Hill. Chernobyl, eh? That's really personal to me, by the way. When they say that it's purely imaginative, high fevered pitch reporting about the accidents at Chernobyl, all of which resulted in many descriptions, visualizations, are merely imaginative flights of fancy with no connection to physical reality. No connection to physical reality. That describes Posch and Hill, don't it? These are children that don't even have a fucking radio. Kyle Hill stole all the donations that would have went there, most likely. He has to probably have donate to the Chernobyl children, and then he goes and buys a Porsche and takes Porsche out for a drive. how easy could Carl Hill go down to the hundreds of orphanages in Belarus and Ukraine and provide at least some black and white TVs even for the victims of Chernobyl? The thousands of abandoned children with no one to love them. Due to radiation being invisible with the naked eye, interpretations of radiation measurements in popular media generally restricted to the harrowing noise of a Geiger counter. The reality of nuclear power accidents is said media has become so diluted and often replaced. La 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 loo. The reality of nuclear power accidents instead media becomes so diluted and often replaced with half-truth and outright lies that feed strongly in the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Maybe Porsche and Carl Hill, if they had a baby, that's what their baby probably would look like, right? And maybe they want to go down to the foundations to take care of these children at Christmas and tell them that it's all in their fucking imagination. And you think you do that for me, Carl? I'll go shoot a fucking YouTube video and tell all them they're faking it. I bet you would, right, if you thought he can come out ahead. Let's run through this for a bit of fun. This is there we go. We had a great show lined up tonight. Carl Hill and Porsche had to spoil it on us. Evaluation of 137 cesium, because nothing else falls out, only cesium. No uranium or plutonium or americium or neptunium or strontium or americium or xenon or... In plant drugs, imagine you're getting drugs for plants that are radioactive from radioactive fallout. Now you're gonna. Oh well, we'll get Carl Hill to write a new limit on the drugs that are allowed to have this much radiation. Whatever Carl says, we'll put in there. And not anthropogenic man-made atom ore. Transfers of Chernobyl-derived 134 cesium, 134, 37, 131 iodines from flowers to honey and pollen. That's by pollinators and bees. Because humans can live without bees, and all the species can live without bees, right? No, they can't. Radioactive contamination and agricultural countermeasures taken in Chernobyl. Countermeasures. This is where they put the pseudoscience, where they claim they're putting potassium there, so therefore the plants won't suck up radiation. You put this radiation is so tiny, it's incredible. It's 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. But you can put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. And each of those anthropogenic man-made atoms are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. Try wrapping your mind around that fucking statement. Oh, that's right, too. Carl Hill doesn't swear. So, strike on Dana. Chernobyl fallout detected in BC seaweed. The variability of Chernobyl cesium retention to water column of lakes in English Lake District. They closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom after Chernobyl. According to Porsche, though, it's fear-mongering, right, Porsche? It showed up everywhere. Pregnancy outcome in Sweden after Chernobyl. Contamination in Australia's soil with cesium. Cesium. They closed the Swedish fresh fisheries for 30 years after Chernobyl because it's like a banana and a fucking potato chip and walking in sunshine, right, Kyle? Transports of 137 cesium, americium, plutonium. And so they're saying the half-truths and truths. We don't deal in half-truths and truths. I only deal in actual studies and academics, documentation that's backed up by more and more and endless and fucking perpetual documentation. The amount of documentation that brings you every year is pretty staggering, actually. Born of years and years of fucking perpetual work, eh? So when he suggests to you that there's no adverse side effects, it's so evil what they do. I can't comprehend it. Because it's not easy being a fucking scumbag, to tell you the truth. But as you can see with Kyle Hill, he never lost a fucking hair off his head. I pulled all the hair out of my fucking head. In desperation. Due to radiation being invisible with the naked eye, interpretations, radiation measurements, and popular medias, they dilute it, downplay it, they chastise you for considering it. Why is it that people are drawn more to nuclear accidents than a disaster like that at Bhopal? Which was a terrible accident, by the way. It was just a gas leak and people were killed immediately. There's just thousands of them, right? It was a horrific accident. But radiation covers the fucking planet in just 30 days in all the studies. And everybody gets cancer. Everybody gets heart diseases. Everybody gets lung diseases. Everybody gets respiratory illnesses. There's Alzheimer's and dementia and autism, Down syndrome and schizophrenia, heart, liver, lung. And the children, of course, and the small insects and birds, mammals, and animals have fucking radioactive hormones because their thyroids are saturated with it. There's the evidence. There's 21 days of phologists of Neptunium. We have endless documentation of it, of the different isotopes. But there's so many studies showing how this works. Look where they put 40 potassium 40. This is a favorite trick of Kyle, by the way, Kyle Hill, to conflate anthropogenic man-made with natural, harmless, stupid, everyday background. The problem with radiation is it covers the whole planet. And Bhopal is a local area. It's a terrible event, but it didn't contaminate every bird, every insect, every fucking flower, every fruit, every vegetable. It didn't saturate the thyroid glands of every species and every child and every adult. I don't understand that there's actually ways to filter some of it out of their system, to boost their immune systems, and try to have a reasonable life, because you can't want to have a great life, because Kyle Hill and Posch and tens of thousands of these degenerate fucking crooks, these jailbirds, these fucking desperados, really. What is it that makes the one nuclear bomb at Hiroshima so much more interesting than the firebombing of Tokyo or the flattening of Dresden? Well, it's the fact that they found the radioactive fallout in the Alps and the Canadian glaciers, and that was documentation that everybody would have been breathing it in. Your body attacks it with white blood cells for the rest of your life and tries to build a tumor around it. Which could take 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and does. Everybody was affected by it. You actually had atomized and aerosol, ionized and radiated humans that were turned into radioactive plumes. It's terrible what they done to firebombing the week before. They didn't need to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki to get their point across. They could have bombed anything close by. Why do we fear nuclear power more than dam failures? Well, first off, you should fear nuclear because every fuel pool is hemorrhaging radiation 24 hours a day, because not here in reactor 4, because that's long gone. But the top of most of the reactors is decades of reactor cores, and there's no containment. And when it comes out of the reactors, the reason it was able to boil water to power 1 million homes and businesses every day, 24 hours a day, is because it was splitting atoms. Once you took it out of the reactor and put it in the pool, it didn't stop splitting atoms. And these pools boil off about 120,000 liters a day. That's why almost all nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. So they can get you at the supermarket tomorrow and the day after, consistently. They don't, all the people in nuclear industry don't buy shares in the pharmaceutical industry for something to do it. And the heavy toll of air pollution, according to James Hansen, it was 64,000. A couple of years ago, I can't remember, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Oxford, one of them come out with a study said it was 6 million people a year dies of pollution. Simply not true. Your body is able to deal with the normal pollution because we're already really acclimated to it through genetic superior selection. Our immune systems are. But anthropogenic man-made radiation, your body has no defense against it. Your body attacks it relentlessly with white blood cells for the rest of your life. There's nothing else on the planet that has those particular attributes. Well, Kyle attacks you every second of every day with all the propaganda you put out there, right? If we honestly look at nuclear accidents, it's clear that invariably the panic afterwards did more damage than the event itself. So they're saying that there was no damage from that, for instance. And then so why did they go out and pretend they were in a building that doesn't exist? And the heavy toll of air pollution. Sorry. Often inspired by scientifically discredited theories like the linear no threshold, which killed so many in the USSR and Japan. So saying that the linear no threshold killed people in the Soviet Union, which contaminated the entire planet, of course. They closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. Not because it's like a fucking banana either. That's an incredible statement. You got to be pretty slick to put a statement like that together. Linear no threshold is true because the tiniest amount of radiation is going to pulse enter, which is an atom, and you put 2 million atoms and you have a needle, and a single atom sequestered in your muscles, your organs, and your bones will pulse energy almost at the speed of light every second. That's going to wreck chromosome, DNA, and cells throughout your entire body in every direction, and everybody else's body within a few hundred feet of you. And so what it means, though, is your body have to send out white blood cells to repair everything that was damaged every second. It can't keep up with it. It's pulsing almost at the speed of light. So this is not harmless and innocuous and benign. This is real energy. You can't perceive it or smell it or feel it or taste it or hear it or pick it up or throw fucking rocks at it. But that doesn't, like Kyle Hill, it doesn't mean it's not fucking evil and it doesn't exist. You don't see Kyle Hill, do you? But that don't mean he ain't out there fucking doing evil. I can tell you that much. And so the linear no threshold is because really when it gets in your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells and builds a tumor around it. That could take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Or if you get a lot of it in your body is producing so much white blood cells, it's what they call leukemia. Produce more white blood cells than red blood cells. And so you die that's why all your cells fall out too, or your hair follicles fall out. Obviously, Kyle Hill. It's unbelievable how evil that boy is. There's quite a few examples of Kyle Hills out there, though, isn't there? Like Veritasium. There's a Stinkfoot / Thunderfoot. These are the exact Kyle Hills. Kyle just takes it to a different level by being appealing strictly to the kids, right? In light of because in school he can get away with the kids. Kids are learning; they don't know any better. You can tell a lie, and they're going to repeat the lie. He's perfect, right? In light of a lightly restarted Unit 1 of the 3 Mile Island plant in the near future for artificial intelligence, we covered that in my last week of doing shows. It might behoove us to wonder what we might learn from the world's worst commercial nuclear power disaster. How can you say Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island is the world's worst nuclear power disaster. And Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island doesn't look like 3 Mile Island contaminated 2 million people. They covered it up successfully. But how can you say 3 Mile Island is worse than Reactor 3 or Reactor 4 at Fukushima? And 3 Mile Island didn't lose decades of reactor cores at the top of 4 buildings in Japan. They melted down, by the way, and lost the fuel pools. Like it's clear that Porsche didn't write the story, but it's clear that Porsche put her name on a lot of stories like this. Definitely connected to the intelligence agencies. Ruthless, eh? People like this are fucking ruthless. The 3 Mile Island public relation disaster. What truly happened at 3 Mile Island? Well, you can go watch my presentations that are 3 hours long or something. How many academic studies are in those things? Like, the last Chernobyl was over 400 academic studies in it for this year's anniversary, for instance. Carl Hill will cut your throat, go through your pockets, go buy lollipops, and give them to the kids on the way to school. Because he's such a great guy. Why is 3 Mile Island surrounded by farms? Like every other nuclear power plant. And how can you be that fucking complacent? Because there's people like Carl Hill out there. That's the sexy vampire. Imagine putting that in your title, sexy vampire. Because he's trying to appeal to little girls, right? The operators, little boys don't give a fuck about it, but little girls do. The operators undertook improper action that ultimately led to the core overheating and the fuel rods partially melting down. First, after calling 3 Mile Island, Carl Hill and the rest of them are saying it's worse than Chernobyl, Fukushima. All the nuclear meltdowns worldwide is not as bad as Reactor 4. You took 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl and the SL1 and the rest of them, adding them all up, they're still not as bad as Reactor 3. Reactor, not counting the fuel pools with 8 reactor cores in it that are gone also. Kyle knows what I'm saying, it's true. I can tell you that much. The operator undertook improper action that ultimately led to the core overheating and the fuel rods partially melting down. At 3 Mile Island, there was incredible releases. We can go through all the documentation. We're not doing that tonight, but I got nothing to gain by lying to you. During the process, some radioactive gases escaped via the relief valve into the environment and surrounding the plant. Mostly xenon and krypton isotopes. There was one study come out, and they even put it in the media, where they said, yeah, there's 2 million people got a dose of radiation, but it was equal to 1 millisievert, which is equal to watching a color television, Dana, for an extra year. Back in those days, TVs were scary, so was color. You sit your kid in front of it and then fuck them up for the rest of their lives and walk away, right? But they ain't no nuclear meltdown. They're not in your body pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. They are synced to a child's brain, though, for the frequencies. Sexy vampire, Carl Hill. Serial killer. Ted Bundy was sexy, too, apparently. They look a lot alike, don't they? Isn't that weird? So they suggested mostly xenon and krypton isotopes from a nuclear meltdown, which are unbelievably short-lived isotopes, right? They're shorter than iodine-131. Being evil comes natural to some people. And these guys don't have to do anything. All they got to do is put their name on the story, right? And then put it out to their people that are stupid enough to read their stories. The effects on this as a local population was estimated to be almost 1.1 millisievert, effectively half of a chest x-ray. Well, chest x-ray goes on and off. It's nasty to do to anybody, by the way. It's horrific. 2 x-rays on a pregnant woman, the child will have about a 50% chance of graduating school. And by the way, they got nothing to do with each other. They're completely different. One's a proton beam, and the other one's radiation's in your body. The millisievert, by the way, is 1,000 microsieverts. Each microsievert is about 750 atoms. 750,000 atoms in your body, pulsing energy every second, almost at the speed of light. Your body has to repair all the damage every second and try to build a tumor around it for the rest of your life. That's 24 hours a day. Every second, your body's attacking the damage forever. Effectively, half of chest X-ray diffraction. Imagine what happens to a bird or an insect. And a fraction of the average annual natural background. You can't conflate natural and anthropogenic man-made. Anthropogenic man-made pulses energy every second. That's why you have terrorist laws. You piece of fucking shit, you who wrote that story originally. Not Porsche. She didn't write the story. She's too fucking stupid to write that. But the people that gave it to her, I'm talking to. So you can't talk about bananas and potato chips and walking in the sunshine. I'll show you why. I'm a fucking sucker for punishment anyway. I'm a sucker for punishment. That's what I am. Should we, right? We can make a happy song like that. I can do it. Oh yeah, hang on. Let's see how many of them we can debunk tonight anyway for a bit of fun. So potassium. Let me get one more. That was actually. So an atom is a Becquerel. Disintegrates every second, but it doesn't disintegrate. It's a pulse of energy. Calling it a disintegration is completely not true. It's a pulse of energy, and it pulses in every direction, every second. And because it's anthropogenic man-made, it can do that for millions of years. With this, we call it man-made because it's not created by the sun. It's not created in the solar system. We don't see that element in our periodic table. It's a man-made isotope, atom, and such we name it anthropogenic, man-made. And so in a curie, there's 37 billion of these pulses every second. And in a gram, of cesium, there's 88 curies. So 88 times 37 billions pulses of energy every second. And in strontium-90 is 140 curies. So 140 times 37 billion atoms pulsing energy every second, almost at the speed of light. And so potassium-40 is 0.000071 curies per gram. 71 10 millionths of a curie per gram. But cesium is 140 times 37 billion per gram. So potassium is not even, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 71 10 millionths of a single curie, and there could be 140 curies in strontium-90. So they're completely different. The natural background levels in the U.S. of 3,100 microsieverts, or 1% of the local background radiation. Again, they artificially created these numbers to conflate them, so you can't rationalize what's happening, because that's the only way they can exist. Right? Deceit and dishonesty is, their entire legacy is predicated upon deceit and dishonesty. Calling it a coward industry is appropriate. 1.4 millirems is 1.4 thousand microsieverts. So the effects on the local population from 3 Mile Island, which was 2 million people. I can bring up that if you want me to. Just hang on a second. For posterity's sake. I've been down for a while, so I got a long way to go to get back up and running. We might lose this year. 1.4 million millirems. Oh, 3 Mile Island. Right, hang on. It'll take a lot of shows to go through everything. If I Here we go. Oh my goodness, it's shocking, eh? This is one of my favorite ones here coming up. Yeah, I'm always a little bit shocked by the propaganda from so many different directions, and they're so good at what they do. Testing of evaporators began at 3 Mile Island. So after 3 Mile Island, they had 2.3 million gallons of water that they poured over the reactor cores that they were forced to keep. This is the official story, but they don't keep. You can't put this stuff in containment, or you got to dump it straight into the ocean, because you're having lethal doses by the liter. And so there was really nothing there. But they had to fool you, because they said, well, we collected all the water, nothing got into the environment, everybody go back home. And they did. By the way, Santa Susana is 460 times. It's equal to 460 3 Mile Islands melting down, the radiation releases at Santa Susana. The release effects on the average person within 50 miles of 3 Mile Island will be less than the amount of radiation received from a year watching color television. Imagine saying something like that. You know, and after Chernobyl, they closed 9,000. It was actually 9,400 farms, which meant you should have abandoned the countries, because the radiation doesn't just look for farms and then that's where they settle. And if you close the farm, it's not because you got a few atoms there, it's because it's saturated. And in order to saturate Britain, which is 3,000 kilometers away from Fukushima, you had to saturate all of Europe. And so if the farms are too radioactive to grow food or sheep on it, then it's too radioactive to drink the water anywhere in that country, or to play in the playgrounds or anywhere else. So he got at most 1.4 millirems, and he's saying that's 14 microsieverts, but that's simply not true. It's 1.4 thousand. It's 14,000 or 1,400 microsieverts, because the USV is a microsiever. There's 1,000 microsievers and I'm sorry, that's millirem. Yeah, my mistake. I screwed up. Half a chest X-ray. A fraction of the annual natural background levels in the U.S. of 3,100 unisievers, which is a microsiever. So they conflated millirems, which is the standard screw you trick that they do, or 1% of the local background radiation. Again, local background radiation is that they created that doesn't. We're already acclimated to the natural stuff through genetic superior selection. We coexist perfectly with it. We are genetically superior selected to deal with it. There is no issues with it. Our body treats it as homeostasis. Right? We regulate it like the furnace regulates the temperature in your house, or the automobile regulates, the cruise control regulates the speed of your automobile. Your body treats it and just uses it because it's applicable. It's natural. You can't conflate them with anthropogenic man-made radiation like they're doing. No physical injuries or worse occurred. Of course, it's simply not true. It's such a dishonest thing to say. And that's murder to suggest that nobody had any adverse side effects from this stuff. Reports of enormous increases in cancers, infant mortality rates doubles, birds disappeared, mutations, allegations of pet deaths. People left their pets behind. When they came back, a lot of them were dead. supported by top universities reanalyzing of 3 Mile Island data. 3 Mile Island says radioactive releases were hundreds or thousands of times higher than the government admitted. You only need one atom in your body to trigger an autoimmune response for the rest of your life. The real harm at 3 Mile Island came not from the accident itself, but from the bungled interaction with the press by the people in charge of the accident response. We've heard a lot of these stories. This is excellently detailed in the documentary created by Kyle Hill, the monster. I'm sorry, the sexy vampire. Is that what he calls himself? Who also contrasts the real accident with the imaginary accident dreamed up in the 4-part Netflix series, which they told brutal lies in that one too, by the way. If you go back and watch my 3 Mile Island presentations, it's all over it. And the problem is anybody could go out to flush Kyle Hill out in the nuclear industry. You're banned for it. And so this is his video, 3 Mile Island, what really happened. As anti-nuclear groups swooped in, like it's hard for me to comprehend this kind of contempt, but you realize that Porsche didn't write the story. It's actually the nuclear energy agencies or the International Atomic Energy Agency that have a heavy hand in that before it makes it onto their computer screen for them to put their name on it. On 3 Mile Island amplified our messages and panicking citizens as far as hundreds of kilometers away worrying about having to evacuate and potential nuclear fallout. There's still time about 3 Mile Island, right? Yeah. Didn't kill or harm anyone. As such an offensive statement. Isn't that an unbelievable offensive statement? There was actually a map of the cancer. Right? And the darker colors is cancer clusters. Which was incredibly downplayed again, even that. But that's cancer, the dark areas are cancer clusters. Three Mile Island didn't harm or kill anybody. Is why take a job where your job is to come out and just downplay every facet of a ongoing nasty, because the radiation never goes away. It has to go somewhere. It can't just disappear. It'll be here long after the human experience on top of that, killing everything with replicating cells. And despite it being assigned the 5 rating, of course, Santa Susana was equal to 463 Mile Islands, and still melting down. This was a sodium reactor, which everyone in the tribes melted down. They had one at the Rico Fermi plant, right? We successfully covered that one up. Fukushima. Despite it being assigned a 5 rating, it was arguably less severe than a non-commercial accident. Well, it doesn't matter if it's commercial or not commercial, it's a nuclear reactor. If a nuclear bomb blows up in your community, does it matter if it was a war or it was an accident? Is the damage going to be the same, or is it going to be less because it was an accident? Which killed 3 and caused massive contamination. That was successfully covered up, by the way. And there's lots of documentaries out there exposing it, but nobody cares, right? Oh, it's all gone away nowadays. Why don't you go buy a piece of land or grow some food on it and feed yourself for a little while? Oh, that's right, because you know better. If anything, the only enduring legacy of 3 Mile Island Unit 2 accident was the toxic fallout of the public relations disaster that still contaminates discourse on nuclear power to this day. When 3 Mile Island happened, some of the concessions that they had to make was to build no more nuclear power plants. So there was over 100 nuclear power plants immediately throttled. And then they had to put sirens within 10 miles of all nuclear power plants, which is quite the undertaking, right? Some of the plants got 160 sirens to warn the population, but that would never be used in an accident. That was strictly done to pacify any dissent. And despite the horrors of the immediate aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant reactor steam explosion, graphite fire, and subsequent radioactive cloud, Chernobyl. Let me see if I can get this right. This was a Chernobyl plume, but it actually works like that, but it's completely different than that. And there's lots of models. This is a better model. This is Fukushima. This is Japan. Watch the plume coming out. This model is based on 31 days. It's based on up to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. And you're at day 20 right now. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, CCL1, all of them would have produced the exact same kind of plume. So, anthropogenic man-made pollution, like from industries and stuff like that, that get into the jet stream, still don't produce plumes like this. They're huge particles. And the dust from the Sahara deserts will produce plumes that cover like 5,000 square miles, which is pretty massive. But radiation is so tiny, it doesn't need the jet streams or anything else to assimilate into everything with replicating cells on the entire planet, where it pulses energy at the speed of light, and where nothing on the planet has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it, which is catastrophic to everything with replicating cells. This model is only based on 31 days of radioactive fallout. And when you're watching it, I'm going to speed this one up. Watch how the source, which is still doing that, by the way, but it disappears in the plume right there. So you don't really see the rest of it coming out. But it's doing this all day, every day. That's what it does all day, every day. And that model is based on 31 days at 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic air meter of cesium-137, which pulses energy 600 feet every second. And it's catastrophic to spiders, for instance. It's very difficult to find spiders in the woods anymore, because normally I find spiders, we see what insects are in the webs, right? The worst harm was caused by the denial by the Soviet authorities that anything was wrong. The worst harm was caused by people like Posch and everybody else who make a living putting out false stories like they're doing, which resulted in delayed evacuations, the lack of distribution of iodine tablets, which is not going to protect you after a nuclear accident or before it. The only protection is you got to get out of within 100 square miles of it immediately and keep heading away. To prevent harm from the radioactive iodine-131 isotope, for every 131, there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 times more iodine-129s. And you have to multiply by 600 to get all the other isotopes in order to get the actual numbers of gammas and alphas and betas and neutrons. And not just iodine gammas. And then the gammas, the alphas, the neutrons, the betas, when they're pulsing energy, they don't mix with each other. They hit each other and they change direction. It's known as a braking effect. But they're doing it at almost the speed of light. So you got gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas pulsing energy each almost at the speed of light. When they hit each other, they change direction. And that effect is known as an X-ray. And in the woods and the forests, it's full body X-rays will to everybody. But particularly in the forest, where it also kills the bacteria and the fungus and breaks down the biota, the foliage in the litter, right? It creates a habitat for all the other little microscopic animals in order to munch and break down and convert foliage and litter in the forest. And so that doesn't break down anymore because you don't have the fungus and the bacteria anymore. And what that means is when you get lightning strikes now, you get this foliage and litter, those great big chunks will float thousands of feet and land, and you got little bonfires that are landing everywhere. And now we have massive fires worldwide, symmetric. And you can really, when you look at all the die-offs and all the emaciated whales, emaciated birds, and all the other, and you go back and watch my last presentation on die-offs, it's a preparatory for a presentation that I was supposed to do last week, but I got hurt, and I didn't feel like going through it tonight. I want to come out shit on Kyle Hill for a little bit, and it's just a fraction of the shit on his head that should be done, which result in delayed evacuations, lack distribution of iodine. Iodine tablets not going to protect you from uranium, plutonium, and the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods, by the way, is not iodine-131, it's curium. And curium, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. Plutonium was named after the devil. I'm not digression, it's a complicated subject, but it's not complicated, but there's so many facets to it that once you absorb this stuff, you can extrapolate on your own, which is very useful when you're trying to protect yourself with food and water and places where you might be living. So within 15 miles of a nuclear power plant, within 15 miles of a nuclear power plant, there's 7 times more breast cancer, for instance. So if you had a bunch of daughters, would you buy a house within 15 miles of a nuclear power plant knowing that? It's caused by the fuel pools hemorrhaging radiation into the environment because there's no containment. And we'll put out a challenge for Kyle Hill to challenge my assertions. Show me the evidence, Kyle. Let me do this again. One of the cutest dogs out there is a beagle dog, right? Super cute animal. Very sweet animals. But scientists like Kyle Hill and them, this is Dr. Raymond Gilmedy from Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico. And this is 144 beagle dogs and beagle puppies. Death from radiation, they were given a single monodispersal inhalation of plutonium-238. And bone tumors were found in 93 dogs, were the most common cause of death. And tumors of the lungs, the skeleton, and liver occurred beginning about 3 years after exposures. Lung tumors were found in 46 dogs, were the second most common cause of death. And liver tumors were found in 20 dogs, were the cause of death in only 2 dogs, but they had typically 3 tumors: the bone, the skeleton rather, the lung, and the liver. But the bone tumors, the skeleton tumors, killed 93 of the 144 beagle dogs. And tumors in these 3 organs occurred often in the same animal, were competing causes of death, and the findings suggest that similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally exposed to plutonium-238. Okay, but there's a problem in that study. And the problem was that animals' kidneys are 50 times less efficient, or humans' kidneys are 50 times less efficient than an animal kidney at removing plutonium. So in other words, the animal was 50 times more efficient at removing the plutonium from their bodies than a human is. So a human is 50 times more vulnerable than a dog. And every dog died in every study. And you say, well, a dog lives long, and I can hear Kyle Hill now. Oh, well, a dog lives long. Sure, their lifespan is 7 years for every year, Dana. Yeah, but 3 tumors in each one. That doesn't matter if you're a fucking elephant or a doggy or whatever. And at the end, the dogs are actually 50 times more efficient at removing the plutonium, which is not the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod, which is curium isotopes. It's the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod. It's not iodine-131 or cesium, but curium. And curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for the dogs. Back to the crazies. And the consumption of radiological contaminated milk and their other foodstuff in the surrounding area rather than these being destroyed. Well, you can't destroy it, you can't burn it. You'll just liberate it back into the ecosystem. You can't bury it, you'll liberate it back into the ecosystem. It'll manifest through the water tables, or through the roots, through honey, through pollen, which becomes radioactive. And the consumption of radiological contaminated milk and other foodstuff, well, it's not just milk. If it comes out of the ground, we eat it, right? And that simply wasn't true. The whole country, the whole continent was contaminated heavily, and so was the rest of the planet. But the whole continent. The world's unquestioned worst nuclear accident led to only a few dozen attributable deaths. And this is the narrative you're going to hear. Mostly among the first responders who were fighting, this is Chernobyl, the raging graphite fire and exposed core when the radiation levels from the short-lived isotopes, like iodine-131, remember the krypton and the xenon that they mentioned earlier, were at their highest, with the highest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is the curium isotopes. And curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for the plutonium isotope. And the plutonium isotope killed all the animals in all the studies. And that humans are 50 times less efficient than an animal is at removing that with their kidney. Okay, so hang on again. Let me see. Chernobyl, you say, eh? This is Harvard University talking about all the helicopter pilots died at Chernobyl.
And you know well at Chernobyl, the helicopter pilots that came in and that deposited the heavy materials to try to put down that fire, which was a very different kind of event than what we're looking at now. But still, there were helicopters, and the pilots all died from radiation exposure. Here's a decision question.
So, there was a documentary where they say 600 pilots died.
It was heroism.
During this operation, 600 pilots are fatally contaminated with radiation. All of them will die. But their efforts only buy a few days. Although it has been covered over, the fire still isn't out.
So it killed over 600 people. Helicopter pilots alone. But here's this cunt trying to tell you that nobody died. There were no deaths outside of a couple of dozen, was it, they said? But what about the 600 helicopter pilots? Don't they matter? Are they not people too? Should we, like if it was daytime, I would call up helicopter companies and ask them, were they people? Yeah, hey, Dana, Colin. I'm just trying to work out if you guys are people, because we're reading a story that says helicopter pilots are not people. Uh-huh. Hey, I didn't say it. Some shithead named Porsche did. What are we going to do? On to their next lie. They tell a lot of lies, unfortunately, don't they? Cases of thyroid cancer likely increased due to the exposures to iodine-131. It's hard to quantify exact numbers, especially amidst the statistical noise of forced evacuation and the resulting stress. Well, they evacuated millions for hurricanes and cyclones and typhoons, which you don't see. And substance abuse, so they go down that road, do they? There's a lot of them go down, but only the most despicable ones will go down that route, I noticed over the years. Probably a little too soon for me to be back doing shows, but how long have I been streaming for? Yeah, makes sense now. That time went in a hurry, didn't it? Hour and 25 minutes. Let's go a little bit further. Chernobyl. Yeah. Well, let's just go that route. I mean, some of the stuff is just fucking frightening, eh? I don't like this kind of stuff that much because when I was gathering up these studies, I remember I wasn't very impressed. The influence of post-Chernobyl followed on birth defects and abortion rates in Austria. Why are you doing studies like that? The big shot media says there absolutely positively was no adverse side effects. Not even the hair off the balls of a mosquito fell off. The influence of the post-Chernobyl followed on birth defects, abortion, whatever. Trends in human sex odds. So they do these studies after radiation accidents because typically there's more males than females being born. And because the whole population gets irradiated each time, they just do group studies, right? And that's how they quantify how much radiation. Prenatal loss of 400 male fetuses in the Czech Republic. And radiation hates children, and it hates female children in particular, for all species, not just humans. They get 4 times more tumors than males, and they're 2 to 3 times bigger. And for the thyroids, it's extraordinary, the harm for the females, which is taking the radiation and turning into a radioactive hormone distributed throughout for body functions. You can imagine nothing can possibly go wrong with a developing child with radioactive hormones, can it? Secondary sex ratio and trends and associated. You can see why they're doing all the transgenderism, the woke, so-called woke, because they polluted everybody, so you're going to expect a lot of these. We've seen it, like in the Philippines and stuff like that after major events. And the industry knew this in the 40s and 50s. They're still at it today. What does that tell us? And every administration kept the same lie alive. What does that tell us, I wonder? Let me see. Congenital abnormalities in Belarus. That's where Carl Hilscher got it. All of these kids are faking it. I can see them right now. Forget them. Let me show you a butterfly. Chernobyl followed prenatal mortality, England's and Wales, 3,000 kilometers away. Chromosomes aberrations, Norwegian reindeer. All of this, of course, is fear-mongering. Assessments and influences of Chernobyl and birth defects, abortion rates. Estimated lifetime, so many different studies from the same countries is insane. Estimated lifetime effective dose to hunters and their families in the 3 most contaminated counties in Sweden after Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident in 1986. The 3 most contaminated. Well, they closed all the freshwater fishery for 30 years in Sweden, right? Because of Chernobyl. Scumbag Jerry Thomas. What a disgusting example of a human. She's another Kyle Hill, but in a whole different level. Incidences of illegal abortion in Sweden after Chernobyl. Legally induced abortions in Denmark. Pregnancy outcome in Finland after Chernobyl. Why were they doing all these studies, I'm wondering? Pregnancy outcome in Norway after Chernobyl. Early infant mortality in Germany before and after Chernobyl. There's an awful lot of studies on dead children that had no adverse side effects, according to Posch and Kyle Hill and that. Global implications of Chernobyl. The potential for disease initiation by inhaled beta-emitting nuclear particles. If you can't just inhale beta without gammas, alphas, and neutrons. Infant mortality. You know, and all these people are doing that study so they can make Kyle Hill look bad, I guess, right? Dental abnormality in people living in radionuclide contaminated areas. Eye damage. Leukemia arose. Blamed it on the 131. Of course, that's simply not true. It's part of the equation. For every iodine 131, there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 30 times more 133, and 31 times more iodine 129 for starters, which never goes away. 15 million year half-life. Effects of radiation on the reproductive system of all species. Don't think humans only, please. Prenatal irradiation-induced brain and cognitive impairments. Human sex ratio at births after atmospheric weapons testing. So they were doing worldwide studies to see if there were more males and females being born because of weapons testing. But all the weapons testing on the planet is not equal to just reactor 4 at Fukushima. It was huge reactors with a massive, they were pure uranium, pure plutonium. They're completely, unequivocally distributed worldwide. I showed you some of that earlier. Down syndrome in Scotland. Schizophrenia from radioactive fallout. So that's just like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of the studies on the harmful adverse side effects of radiation. Back to scumbags and substances. So they're trying to blame post-Chernobyl, diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries on substance abuse. Because you got to be this has got to be the International Atomic Energy Agency that wrote it, and Porsche put her name on it, right? As a comparison, the United States, part of the populace got regularly exposed to iodine 131. And every time I hear that, I think these people should be waterboarded a couple of hundred times. During the 1940s to the 60s, courtesy of nuclear weapons testing, but despite a lack of precaution, at the time, a casual effect is elusive. They got an apology for everything. Iodine 131, krypton, xenon, all these short-lived isotopes. Yeah, these are extra evil when you do that. It's rare for us to see the extra evil people. Evil is pretty normal every day in the shows, right? And the nuclear industry runs and thrives on evil, that's for sure. Despite what series claimed there was no surge in birth defects, no surge in cancers, only elective abortions. I just showed you a whole bunch of studies. And so just to invoke cancer when there's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia, is, after nuclear accident, the first thing they're studying is Down syndrome and autism. Well, what does that tell us, I wonder? Substance abuse. Rather than a monument to the hazard of nuclear power, Chernobyl nuclear power plant is a testament to its safety. That sounds too much for me to take. That's just rude, isn't it? It's clear Porsche is I looked at what she wrote. She's clearly not smart enough to write that kind of stuff. You have to be an insider of the nuclear industry to write it. You got to be pretty evil, though, to be to even come out to downplay the subject. I'm going to show you some pictures that are pretty friggin' hard to look at of children in Belarus and Ukraine, abandoned by coal hills and Porsches. And these pictures are not going to be fucking easy to look at. There is no safe level of anthropogenic man-made radiation. And the adverse side effects are stunningly heartbreaking. There we go. I'm going to start the pictures right now. I'll let you know when it's over, in case you're not watching. These are diseases from Fukushima radioactive fallout. These children are abandoned, disfigured, or impoverished. And you have these few foundations will go down. It's probably the first time the child felt any love at all. Can you imagine Kyle Hill going down and holding up one of these children and telling his millions and millions of suckers that follow him that they should at least get them radios or TV so they can have some kind of comfort in their miserable fucking existence. Brought to you by people like Kyle Hill. These children are suffering because of Kyle Hills, right? Kyle Hills, rather. Kyle Hills. In fact, if Kyle Hill had one of these children, he would bring it down to Chernobyl so nobody would know, right? Abandoned. No one will love them. And these foundations will go through incredible efforts to bring the children out of the nuclear wasteland for a week or something so they can see that there are people in the world that give a fuck. And Kyle Hill is not going to be one of them. This is never going to be a picture with Kyle Hill in it, right? Kyle Hill is never going to go, these children are faking it. Because he don't want that subject. Kyle Hill should adopt her, right? He's got everything going for him. He can give her a wonderful life. Or maybe this cutie right here. Now, Kyle Hill, though. Japanese unsafety culture. There are also multiple meltdowns at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. The core is overheated, resulting in a melting and the corium solidifying. In the core catchers, Dana. Honest to engine, Dana. Let me see. I don't know if it's... Does it look like I got in the fucking core catcher to anybody? I got another picture of that building. The original picture is that one right there to your behind me. And this is what was left on the ground after. This was a 19-story, 65-meter, 190-foot building. Reactor 3. Oh, we fondly, affectionately known as Medusa. Kyle wants you to be complacent, because if you question it, then you'll question the food in your supermarket. Here's crazy Japan with 30 million one-ton bags of radiation. The food was banned in 14 prefectures by 55 countries for a decade. Grown food right alongside of one-ton bags to ship to America and Canada. And Kyle Hill wants you to eat all that food because Japan never stopped growing food there. They got a lot to get rid of. They need good, indoctrinated people that are not afraid to eat Japanese food. Kyle Hill's, all the videos that he got, and he produced a lot of freaking videos. Didn't he? Let me see, let's bring that back up for a second. Oh, to be as handsome, to be a sexy vampire like Kyle Hill would be pretty cool. I'm so jealous. So jealous I'm not a scumbag, degenerate monster like Kyle Hill. I can barely look in the mirror. A sexy vampire. Imagine putting that on your fucking description. About Kyle Hill, he's a sexy monster. He is a fucking vampire. He's a predator. He's feeding on all of the people that comes to his site. He's a fucking predator. And it's not illegal to be a monster like Kyle Hill, which is the crazy part. And he's got all kinds of videos there to convince you the water's safe, eat everything, buy everything from Walmart, and go to work or go to bed early and get up early and show up at work early. Epidemic of ghost. Was Chernobyl worse than Fukushima? You got to be pretty evil to produce this much material of propaganda. There's a whole level of evilness above anything I've seen. Oh, he's even got a foundation for the dogs. He's got a foundation for the homeless dogs, but he got no foundation for the victims that are abandoned and are destitute and live in abject poverty. And poverty that is leaps and bounds above the average person's concept of it. And that are completely fucking abandoned. Imagine Kyle Hill helping out these wonderful kids. Or even getting this poor kid here, a wheelchair or something. Or get this person like in a real pillow. That pillow's probably been puked on and vomited on and pissed on. No, Kyle Hill got better things to do. He's out being Mr. Sexy Vampire. Kyle Hill. Fucking hurts. That's when the lack of hydrogen vents in the spent fuel pool at the top of the building, resulting in hydrogen. The spent fuel pool, which is not spent, of course, is only 3% of the inventory was used. But what happens is the fuel rods become so brittle, they can't keep them in there because it's zirconium cladding. If it fails, it burns. It doesn't need oxygen, so it'll burn underwater at 1800 degrees, and that'll light up the plutonium uranium pellets, and they'll burn at 9,000 degrees. And the steam in the spent fuel pool is a nuclear meltdown, resulting in the zirconium cladding, finding ignition source and blowing. Well, the ignition source, because you displace all the oxygen, and then it only takes oxygen to be reintroduced or a spark, and it didn't blow off the roofs. Hang on, 30 million one-ton bags is evidence it didn't blow off the roof only. Let's not talk about anything on the propaganda. And look at it, but the detail of the propaganda that they put out is exceptional, isn't it? Isn't it worthy of me coming out? This is the stumper. Now remember, Reactor 1, Reactor 2, Reactor 3, and Reactor 4 melted down at Fukushima. They're not melted down, but they're actually gone. And Reactor 2, a lot of it had went China syndrome deep into the earth. And same thing with Reactor 1, but the fuel pool cooked off right away. The hydrogen explosion is caused by the nuclear meltdown, but then the explosion, because for fracking, they might put 6 or 7 grams of depleted uranium in with the explosives to quadruple or even more the power of the explosives, the dynamite, which is disgusting, by the way. It's common practice. Another way to get rid of their nuclear waste. Imagine 30 million one-ton bags of nuclear waste, and the food is banned in 55 countries for a decade. But the sexy vampire Kyle, and some lighter radioactive isotopes, lighter. Really, there's a difference in an isotope? They're all the same size of anything. Were scattered further away from the plant, but ultimately, and we've heard that originally, that's what we heard, well, uranium plutonium is a real heavy isotope, so they landed close to the reactors. Yeah, right, there's Lake Barrett and Arnie Gunnis, and a lot of them worked there with that narrative. But ultimately, nobody died or suffered injuries from radiation at Fukushima. And that's Kyle Hill's video. See him up in the corner. Mr. Demon himself. Well, that's a pretty incredible statement they got right there, I think. Let's just explore that narrative for a few minutes. I think I got a few interesting statements to make. Extreme increase in mortality caused by cardiac diseases in Fukushima. The death rates might give the creeps to some people besides Kyle Hill. As extra as 12,700 people died of heart attacks alone. Just 1 month. Look at. I don't understand why people choose that path to be evil. But people like Kyle Hill in the future will be put into a cage like a rat and studied. And dissected after as if they were just a lab animal to see why they were so evil. Let me see what we got going on here. Seven people died on one street in the first year. That one scares the shit out of me. 865,000 people, extra cancer patients in 2012, first year. The Japanese National Cancer Center. So not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. Cancer is just one of the endless diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries that will manifest after nuclear accident. A lot of them are latent. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 atoms a kilogram. Yeah. Bear with me. It always takes me a few minutes. Let me see. Here we go. Oh, yeah, I see. Almost there, bear with me. I don't know. Here we go. Nuclear radiation, most carcinogenic thing that exists. Xenon, by the way, is known to cause a dramatic increase in lung cancer. And this is a model of xenon. In the top left-hand corner is 20 days of radioactive fallout of xenon. Remember the neptunium one I showed you earlier? Children's health problem increase, incurable stomach aches, chest pains, nosebleeds. A single atom of plutonium, I showed you those studies earlier actually. Inhaling just one radioactive hot particle can cause a cancer. Child's risk is actually 1,000 times higher because they're developing, so they get mutated bones to stem cells and mutated hormones for the rest of their life. Top cancer doctor, nuclear radiation, the most carcinogenic thing that exists, is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. That's why you had 850,000 extra cancers in the first year. Cancer's late, and cancer's usually the last one to show up. Government's reports since 2011 noted rampant mental health issues among the evacuees, as well as high rates of substance abuse and suicides. And many questions were raised about whether most of the evacuations and the in-progress topsoil removal was ever needed. It's Carl Hill's video that she's quoting, by the way. Well, let's just talk about the topsoil for a few moments. Like, they don't write a fucking sentence that's not a lie. There's no other topic out there where you ever see these types of attributes, is there? It's unbelievable contempt. And every facet of that story is mortifying. I've got a great way of explaining this sometimes. Just bear with me. What Kyle done... Now, Kyle didn't write the stuff in his videos. There's zero possibility that Kyle is actually smart enough to know that much about nuclear. It's such a difficult subject for anybody, let alone a degenerate like Kyle Hill. I'm not calling him to be mean. I'm calling him a degenerate to be accurate. Go read this story. March 7, 2016. 30 million tons of waste. They're talking about 30 million one-ton bags, which you consider 30 million one-ton bags. And in 2016, it was 150,000 sites. In 2019, it was 105,000 sites of 30 million one-ton bags. Imagine growing food in a nuclear wasteland that's abandoned and harvesting it right alongside of one-ton bags of radiation. You got to drive past millions of one-ton bags of radiation for an hours to get to where you're going to farm, which is in sight of a nuclear meltdown that's still ongoing. And in one community like Fukushima City, they put 3,000 of these garbage Geiger counters that they allegedly are measuring in microsieverts, right? But that's the same place where they picked up 30 million one-ton bags, and where the average, it's 100,000 atoms per kilogram. And then the bags are not measured in microsieverts, they're measured in physical atoms. So why would you measure the radiation at 3,000 Geiger counters in a city at unisieverts for? Instead of because the same Geiger counter is going to count unisieverts can count Becquerels, atomic decays per second. They didn't pick up the 30 million one-ton bags because they were bored. Well, the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants that don't speak the language. Kyle Hill is not going to go there and mark on these bags, Dana is fucking wrong. Kyle's not going to go there all day with his troop of little fucking useful idiots and get there with markers. Dana Durnford is wrong. Radiation is cool. It's like a banana and a potato chip. He's not going to go there and do it. Kyle Hill, right? And so she quoted his video. Multiple cracks were found in the concrete of the plant. It allowed water to seep into the reactors. Do you think that's multiple cracks in the fucking concrete, or do you think the building is actually gone? Do you get where I'm coming from? And so then he talks about, he calls tritium hydrogen. Tritium. And he doesn't even call it tritium 3H, which is what it actually is. There's natural tritium from interaction in the upper troposphere, but there's no majority of tritium within 10 years was man-made and never looked back after, right? And tritium never goes away in the context of they don't stop producing it. Because everything is radioactive, so everything is tritiated. All the water on the planet is now tritium. 3H. It's completely different from what he's saying. And so to suggest that tritium, which is what they use in nuclear weapons to make it 100 times more powerful, is benign and innocuous and harmless, is somehow not criminal is a concept I can't quite rationalize. And you see that model he got in his hand there? I got that model there somewhere. But not today. Oh, I don't either. Let's keep going here. Unsurprisingly, the biggest outcome from Japan was the complete restructuring of its nuclear safety model. It's built on a tectonic plate. The reactors that melted down were right in front, 40 miles away from tectonic plates that go yoink for 1,000 miles. Where they got a 3,000-year history of tsunamis that go up to 300 feet high, not just 10 feet or 20 feet like the walls they had, but 300 fucking feet high, and they have signs up there hundreds of years old saying don't build homes below this point because of a 3,000-year legacy of tsunamis. They have 1,000 earthquakes a year right off that coastline and on that coastline. And the newly formed NRC was created post-Fukushima to cover up Fukushima, and to invoke radiophobia is defined as a rational excessive fear of being murdered by the industry from its massive releases every day, leads people to overestimate the health implications of radiation. Well, the academic studies that I showed earlier clearly are calling you a lawyer, whoever originally wrote it and gave it to Posch. Easily miss actual sources of radiation, like taking an airplane flight. The lowest forms of life to invoke flying on an airplanes or granite or radon gas in the basement or cigarette smoke or Brazilian beaches. My goodness. Like what we're talking about are if somebody's refusing to acknowledge that ever happened under any circumstances. 3 Mile Island Unit 1 reactor restarting should be met with joy. First off, the reactors are very old, they're very brittle, they're very high pressure. They're 1,000, 2,000 pounds per square inch. And they're becoming brittle from a Wigner effect, a gamma shine, an X-ray, a neutron bombardment, a beta ray bombardments that breaks down the integrity of the reactors. This is why originally they only had a 30-year life. And to suggest that nuclear is low carbon is the most resource-intensive industry on the entire planet, bar nothing. Every nuclear power plant needs 2 dedicated gas, oil, and coal plants to make it functional. The country to have suffered the worst nuclear disaster in history is Ukraine. But how can you call Ukraine worse than Fukushima, for goodness sakes? How can you call 4 reactors and 32 reactor cores in the fuel pools melting down insignificant? And that's just the cover story. But I mean, to keep pretending that didn't happen, and then they're making a living. Look at all the videos they produce just on shithead Kyle Hill's channel. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? If one thing we learned from nuclear accidents in the atomic age is fear of the atom has done more harm than respect for it. Why would you fucking respect it? Like you don't respect it, why should we? We can only hope that more people will learn the lesson. Posch. And down in the comment section, a typical scumbag comment. Wind turbines kill more people than nuclear power plants all told. And another piece of shit. Excellent article. Really top quality discussion of points that need to be made. This should be put on the desk of every energy boss, energy minister, environmental activists around the world. Yeah, but shouldn't you have a yang for your yin? And there's nobody's throat she wouldn't cut. That's as ruthless and as heartless and as cold as Ted Bundy. Same black fucking eyes too, look at that. Go back and watch my Fukushima extinction level event video that I happened to put out there my last show. And there's and I'll show you all the documentation is there. And come back later when I do my new one. My count, because that one was the preamble to this one. And I wasn't going to do a show this week, to tell you the truth, but my brain doesn't know how to not try, right? I'm not capable of not trying. That's a great flaw to have. I am cursed. Also, finished for the night. I'm going to come and close the poll down. If nothing else, at least don't support Kyle Hill, for goodness sakes. Don't support Dr. Evil. Fukushima 4 nuclear meltdowns got 28 likes. Wow, killed it tonight. Is superficial Kyle Hill a perpetual lawyer, mass murdering monster, and a pro-nuclear degenerate? And he does this at any cost. To you, your friends, your families, your loved ones, and the 8 million species that don't have a voice. The answer is a resounding, overwhelming yes. And to me, that is just the most horrifying statement conceivable. And 26 votes. By the way, this is a show I've only been doing for a decade. I know I've only been doing it for a decade. But no criticism of the monsters will be allowed. Hi, everybody. I'll see everybody on the next show. Yeah, good night, everybody. I'll see hopefully we're doing a show tomorrow night. Hang on there a second. Hopefully we're doing a show tomorrow night. That's my intentions anyway. I don't know if we'll get a full show in, but I'm terrified of no voice out there curb stomping. An industry so evil, it makes all the serial killers on the planet combined look like schoolyard bullies. That's what Kyle Hill makes all the schoolyard bullies and the serial killers look like schoolyard bullies, and that's a fact. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Hope for everybody. See everybody on the next show. Take care, folks.